I think we are good to go. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is a webinar series on European perspectives on justice issues in socio-spatial change. And this is actually a joint event of the RSA, the Regional Studies Association, and the ARL, the Academy for Territorial Development in the Leibniz Association. Our topic today is urban planning for health equity. Let me just briefly introduce myself. It is my pleasure to host today. My name is Martin Sondermann. I work at the Academy for Territorial Development as head of the academic section for society and culture. The hosting institutions are well known, I hope. The RSA is a global and interdisciplinary network for urban and regional research, development, and policy, and supports its members with latest research, funding schemes, networking, publishing opportunities, and a lot of possibilities to exchange professionally. Quite similar is the ARL, which is a transdisciplinary forum based in Germany, but working international. And it also enables cooperation and networking between researchers and practitioners in the field of territorial development and is seeking for new knowledge and solutions for sustainable spatial development. Just brief remarks on the housekeeping for this meeting. So this webinar is being recorded and made available on the ARSR Lounge later. You will also get the link, can also be watched on YouTube. So in case you don't want to be recorded, please switch off your cameras. And in case you haven't done so yet, please mute yourself, so switch your microphone off. You can put questions during the presentations already in the chat, but you can also raise your digital hand later in the discussion. If you are tweeting or using other social media, you can use a hashtag on a RSA webinar along with your posts. Let me introduce the speakers of today's session. The first one will be Heike Köckler. She is professor at Bochum University of Applied Sciences, member of the ARL, so she is member of the Academy, and leads an international working group on urban planning for health equity, which is the topic today. Her research focuses on environmental justice, urban and community health, as well as on transformative and participatory research approaches. The second speaker today will be Martin Knöll. He is architect and professor of design and urban planning at Technical University of Darmstadt in Germany. He works on advancing the transformation processes towards sustainable, inclusive, and livable cities, and is also the co-chair of this international working group for health equity. Last but not least is Claudia Costa. She has a PhD and is a professional working at the Municipality of Pombal in Portugal. She is working in an interdisciplinary team focusing on enhancing health, happiness, and well-being for the people in the community. She's also quite active in the Portuguese network for healthy municipalities and is member of the International Working Group on Urban Planning for Health Equity. So this is it for now, and we would like to start with the first presentation of Heike Köckler, who is giving us an introduction on how to urban plan for health equity. Heike, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Martin, for your kind introduction of this theme and the topic, and of myself. So I'm an urban planner by profession, but working with the health department now since almost 10 years. And so the topic of urban planning and health and all policies, as we say, is one that is pretty much on the agenda. And I was very glad that we could use the opportunity of ARL as a transdisciplinary network, also with an international focus, to set up an international working group on health equity in urban planning, because we really think that urban planning could contribute to health equity. And when we gave the call, we received interesting people who take part, and today only 3 of us are here. In total, we are a group of 14 people from practice and science who work together in this working group. As we in this seminar series talk about equity, and we would like to focus today on the topic of health equity. And what does health equity mean? It means very simple, but not that easy to fulfill, that everyone is treated fairly. So we do not want to have any unjust differences in health outcomes, for example. Health is a human right, so we really have a legal basis on what we do. And health equity additionally means that everyone can be as healthy and happy as they can be, regardless of their background and circumstances. And by focusing on background and circumstances, we already make structural ways of discrimination or structural situations that lead to unjust and unequal situations in the outcome. An easy to point thing is that we want to avoid what can be avoided, because we have an approach of avoidable health effects, and what could be avoided through urban planning is somehow on the agenda of our working group and of the today's presentations. First of all, when talking to spatial scientists, if they talk about health, they often think it's about building a hospital, providing health infrastructure. But we pretty much have a perspective of differences in health that you can see in space. And in our working group, as Martin will point out later in his presentation, it's always about how to show the differences or how to make the spatial component visible. And here is quite a few-year-old example from UK. It shows the life expectation across the Jubilee Line in London. So just to represent how health differences are, or how life expectation is differed between the cities. So if you jump on at Patrick, the males get 78 years old and the females 83 plus 8 years. So females get older than males. That might not be something new to you. But if you leave here in Argyle Street, for example, we see that the life expectation reduces. And this example just does not show that it has anything to do with taking the underground, but with the neighboring environments you have. And that we know that we have differences in life expectation up to 8 years in different cities. This is not only a topic of London, this is a topic that we see in different cities all over the world. And so there seems to be something spatial about it. Another important aspect when we talk about health equity is how we look at it. We talk not just about having equal access for all, but how to realize it. We see in reality that those who have a lot, who are quite tall, like this person, observing something, taking part in something, often have more than is needed, and others who would have some need have less access. We talk about equality. That means everybody would get the same support, here the same box to jump on, but maybe it's not enough to really participate, for example, in health. If we have equity, everyone gets the support they need, which produces equity as a result. So everybody could take part and could have a view. The unequal circumstances are treated unequally. So those who need more support get more support. Or what is also a production of justice is that the causes of inequity are addressed and the barriers are knocked down. So thanks to Daniel, who is also part of our working group, who produced this slide in this way, that is known in different variations, but is also an output and an outcome of several discussions we had. So dealing with the barriers that lead to structural discrimination and structural reasons for health injustice and health inequity is a main topic to deal with health equity in urban planning. What's the link between health equity and urban planning then? Urban planning involves designing the physical, social, and economic environment of cities. And therefore, we want to address how homes are designed, parks and schools, where businesses are located, and how infrastructure and transport are run. So different topics that have a spatial component, which is influenced by urban planning. So planning can either promote health equity or create barriers to it. model that was developed by Marcus Grant, who's also part of our working group, and Hugh Barton, shows that we have different determinants of health who determine how old a person or how healthy a person is. So on the one hand, we have the person itself. It's about age, sex, hereditary factors. But what is most important for us as planners, we also have air, water, land quality. We have the built environment with streets and routes that have an effect, and activities that people could do in living, playing, learning, moving, shopping, working, which are again determined by space and by spatial planning. And these determinants of health could be influenced by urban planning, and we know that they have an effect on health. So this model guides us and helps us to see where we can enter and bring some contribution to health and health equity. Another important component is not just looking at determinants, but also looking at processes and looking at empowerment and participation. What is interesting from a health perspective is that empowerment is a crucial concept of health. So people who are empowered, who can have own decisions about their living circumstances, have a contribution to health. So the empowerment process is important in health concepts. So participation itself, if it has an effect on their own living conditions, contributes to health. And for us in the working group, participation means involvement and co-creation, so real participation, and it needs to reach out of all population groups. All of those who are part of this meeting know for sure about planning procedures which are not procedural just, which exclude specific people, where the invitation cannot be met by all. So planning in general uses various instruments in land use planning, urban renewal programs that invite for participation, but it is not used in full participation or in a diverse participation, but it offers an entry point again to have a contribution for health equity, because there's no instrument in urban planning, at least in democratic countries, without any kind of public participation. Most of you will be familiar with the ladder of participation, where we are not just on the point of manipulation or non-participation. We have different ways of consultation or even of delegated power and partnership, which has to be solved out in detail. What is the right level of participation? This ladder of participation is very often used in public health science and in urban planning. So we use same models, same languages to come together and to talk about the degree of participation and empowerment. As the topic is quite broad and we have different experts in our group, we started to develop a glossary terms. They are not open and available yet, but they are almost done. So because we have so much different topics like infrastructure, health concepts, food and nutrition, vulnerability and resilience, environmental justice, diversity, biodiversity, and climate change. And we think they are all central to deal with urban planning for health equity. We worked on glossary terms that will be open in the next month, and will be available online. So starting this seminar, I just want to bring the conclusion that urban planning plays a vital role in promoting health equity by shaping the environments where people live, work, and play. By prioritizing health and urban design, cities can create healthier and more equitable spaces for all residents. And if you are interested in more, we have an online information on our working group, Urban Planning for Health Equity, and you will get to know more in the next two presentations. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks very much, Heike, for presenting and giving us a good introduction about what is urban planning for health equity about. And now we want to go a bit into some detailed aspects of and get to know something about how to visualize health inequalities. And therefore, I will hand over to Martin Knöll. But I would also like to remind everyone who has joined now that you can already put some questions in the chat if you like to, or you can raise your hand later. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you, Heike, for this lovely introduction. It was great to work in this working group with the ARL. And one thing that we realized, being from such different backgrounds, like architects and planners and health experts, social scientists, was that visualizing helps a lot. May it be like in sketches on some old kitchen toilet paper, I was about to say, but like on some, any sort of visualizing helped to get on the same page. And we started to think about ways how can we forward the discussion about visualizing in health equity for urban planning. And I want to present to you two things that we started. One is a small article in Cities and Health where we give a short overview of what's out there. And this is supposed to support a call for contributions, which should lead to a special issue on visualizing health equity in urban planning. So I want to start with some examples. And Heike, you have used also some examples that we produced in the group. So I can go quite quickly over those. This is kind of the original to what you've shown in Glasgow, a similar map of London that shows the different life expectancies. And this map, I think Heike, you and I, we use in all our teaching endeavors to kind of like raise the awareness and show like what kind of responsibility we have as planners to address those health inequities. So I go quickly over this. It delivers that message really well. Life expectancies varies in different neighborhoods across European cities more than 8 years. And so what we're saying is like that visualizing has an important role to play in urban planning. And I want to add another example that is from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in the US that worked on those, like how to explain equality and equity. And you've touched on this, Heike, already, so I can be quick, but the difference is equality gives kind of everyone the same bike in that examples, and equity wants to consider like what the people might actually need, what size of bike, what kind of bike or wheelchair. But what's important is that the foundation has gotten a lot of feedback on those visual images. It has been the most downloaded content, they say, on their website, but also the most disputed. And I think they did something very intelligent. They used that feedback to produce versions of this diagram. Here you see that the context plays a bigger role. It is a difference if I go with my bike on off-road, and there a BMX might be helpful. It is a difference if I have mobility restrictions and I go uphill, then maybe an electric wheelchair might be the right call. Still, me as an urban planner, I actually prefer this version, which highlights that we're using the cityscape not in the same way, but at the same time, and we share the same spatial environment. So I think this brings this diagram across very well. With, of course, on the left side, an environment with this curb that has a lot of barriers for people with mobility restrictions. And it also brings into consideration that we can change the urban context. We can shape the urban environment. Like we can produce sidewalks where you can roll down. We can add a different signals so that you can hear or see when you can cross the street. So we can alter this, and this is something that is important to talk about when we talk about health equity. So this is the definition. Heike, you have said this already way more eloquently, so I can be short here. But what we're saying is it's important to talk about visualizing now. One thing is about to understand the spatial connections behind it, and visualizing helps. But two things that I want to say or emphasize is that there is new technology out there. Like the artificial intelligence generated content produces maps, and you can prompt it by using the right buzzwords. But do we really know how it works? It's a black box for us. And do we really kind of like push it to the boundaries, what it can be? We say no, and it's important to start the conversation about that. And what we also realize, being from different countries in Europe, is that those countries offer very different frameworks in terms of how they deal with data, how they collect data. So very different frameworks, how you can also visualize health equity for urban planning. And we need to talk about our experiences now and collaborate to improve this topic overall. So this is the editorial article. A colleague, Thomas Verbeck from TU Delft, has taken on the lead in this. It will be out next week. And we give a preliminary overview, what's out there. We support it by examples. And I want to just touch upon a few things here. So we cast the net wide, right? There is, as I said, there is drawings, there is physical models, also a part of visualization. There's diagrams, there's charts, and there's also maps, and that we observe there. And we argue that all of those have a part to play in the different phases of urban planning. The WHO has come forward with this framework of different phases, from diagnosis to formulation of like the design to implementation, up until like evaluating actual effects. And we say that visualizations have a role to play in all of those phases. And I just want to present 3 case studies that we have discussed in the editorial article. One is the classic maps. This is the Environmental Justice Atlas in Berlin that uses different indicators for environmental injustice. Some are environmental, so air pollution, there's green space provision, noise burden, and thermal burden, as well as like the social disadvantage index. And they combine those in different ways and rate them according to if the burdens are poor or heavy, high, middle, or light. And you can see that here in the color scale. And of course, a map like this helps to prioritize where should action be needed, and also to give arguments for it. So several districts within the bigger agglomeration of Berlin have taken this to kind of like push, for example, traffic calming endeavors. You see an example here from Friedrichshain. That then translates into implementation. So this is to say that visualizing helps from the early stages of planning up until the implementation, and it should in the future, we argue, even more also be part of the evaluation process. Different case study to emphasize there's a lot of quantitative work, and I think the qualitative work, for example, for photo stories and photo voice, has a role to play here as well. This is an example that shows negative, let's say, environmental experiences and positive, and it's always a way to kind of like get a group together, have a walkabout, and have them reflect in a scientific and structured way on their experience. But it also goes beyond that to deliver recommendations. And of course, it is important to kind of get into acting as well, to do that kind of visualization. And a third aspect is in those examples that we found that are very well in telling the story. And I'm about to talk about the Brussels examples where it's very interactive how they do it. So it works really well on the mobile phone, where you can give kind of assessments, and then it goes back to you like what the reality is. And so here you see some impressions of that. It uses maps, of course. It also uses charts. And what's impressive about it is that it's accessible, but it also is based on facts, and it like it cites consistently where the data comes from, and that is very convincing. And it combines this with, of course, with illustrations that also bring this qualitative experience of like how it is the inequities, and tells the story about this inequities in Brussels. So I can highly recommend it, Ailing Brussels, as an example that tells this story very well. So we've come to observe several dimensions, how visualizations can impact in urban planning. And we say dimensions because we mean that this is the purpose. You see those titles, and then you have a small summarization of the purpose. And of course, all those examples that I show, they can serve multiple purposes. So we talk about dimensions that they to emphasis that they can overlap. This is something you can read further in the article. I want to end this short presentation with like giving you some questions on the way, and we would like you to reflect on it and see if you want to contribute with your research to our special issue. One question is, we've mentioned several indicators, they're all quantitative, and we all realize that it's about the combination of socioeconomic data, but also of spatial data. But that also brings some challenges, some ethical challenges, but also methodological in terms of the method that you're applying. So we're wondering, what are the suitable methods to visualize health equity in urban planning? We also see that there is structural discrimination against people with different age, different gender, different religions, different abilities, and they all have a place-based component. And how can we start to communicate this structural discrimination that is relevant to health equities? Third, talked about quantitative, and not to say that qualitative is more important. It's both, it's always a combination, but qualitative strategies can help especially vulnerable groups that are often overlooked. So what are qualitative strategies to visualize health inequities is the third very relevant question. And then I've chosen this example from the Robert Johnson Wood Foundation because they can give us data. How often was this diagram, which you see in the background, downloaded? So we have some sense of like how effective that visualization is, but we have rarely any systematic studies on that. So really, how effective is all those images that we love, that we feel are relevant, but how effective are they? It's a fourth question. And then, of course, map making, as we all know, is always an act of power. And we have to look closely who has done this map, and like with what motive. So who is responsible for the visualization is the fifth question. And we also see, me coming from a planning background, that even GIS is used very rarely, for example, for us in the architecture school, even though everyone knows that it's super useful. But we have a lack of educational programs in many schools that simply supply everyone with the tools to use it. So how can we really increase the usage of visualization? And seventh and final, I have touched upon like the new technologies. Virtual reality is one new technology used in the planning process more and more. Also, artificial intelligence is a technology that comes more. And how can we steer that innovation so that it's used in the right way? So those are the questions we would like you to think about and hopefully contribute to our call. It's a special issue in Cities and Health. The call opens next week on the 25th of April, and we will share it through all the channels and so on. We have a great team of editorial of editors, and we're happy that this is a new kind of partnership between the journal Cities and Health and ARL, the Academy for Territorial Development. That is, I think, quite fruitful. The Cities and Health is a good journal for that because it's in my view, it's well known and well established, but they're also happy to explore some new formats. So especially for this topic, we are interested in original work, original empiric data, but also in kind of like formats that show rather than tell, yeah, that bring visual images to the forefront. So we're interested in that. Can't wait to get your contributions. I thank you for your attention. I'm sorry my internet is so bad. And off to Claudia. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Martin, for giving us insights in why to visualize, how to visualize not only in quantitative but also qualitative terms, and raising important questions, giving some hints on how to contribute to our special journal, special issue. And our third presentation is coming now, which is given by Claudia. And we are looking forward for to hear about your experiences. Claudia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. So, as a practitioner at the municipality of Pombal, we are a small municipality located in the center of Portugal. I'm here to talk a bit about the URBACT program, which is a EU project that EU program that is being run at the moment. The topics that I will talk about will be what can we learn from the urban URBACT method, and how can we apply it to other sectors like the health sector, and how this urban URBACT program is promoting health equity without setting it as a goal. So the URBACT, it's a territorial cooperation program. It aims to foster sustainable integrated urban development in cities across Europe by facilitating the share of knowledge and good practice between cities and other levels of governance. So this program offers an opportunity to learn from other peers in Europe in order to improve the way cities are dealing with a specific topic. It is co-financed by 3 programs, but mainly by the European Regional Development Fund. URBACT, it's a very interesting program within the EU programs, because it is a program that provides transnational exchange and inspiration, because this program enables the cities to gather regarding one topic and to learn on enables to learn new approaches and new ideas on a specific topic. So it brings cities from the diverse backgrounds and experiences, and through a peer review between the partners of the network and between networks, allows to create new perspectives and practices that help to generate new ideas for the own city. So this program allows the exchanging between cities and stakeholders, which makes them question how they often approach similar issues in their cities. The URBACT offers a method and a guidance on how to develop and implement integrated local policies. By instance, it is within the program, within the network, each member or each city organize a URBACT local group, which is a group of citizens and stakeholders that are interested with responsibility on the specific topic. This program also allows for experimentation and testing actions that will allow to evaluate if the plan developed is good for the topic we want to achieve or not. Another important aspect is that URBACT has an URBACT toolbox, which is a platform where you can have access to more than 600 good practices on how to interact with the citizens and stakeholders by looking through analysis problems, planning actions, resourcing, implementing, and measuring results. As well as engaging stakeholders and sharing knowledge. So everyone that wants to participate on an urban network and would like to know how they can promote participation of the citizens on how to identify which actions are needed to achieve, for instance, health equity, which kind of tools they can use. And this is a platform where they can check and find a tool that can be suitable for their own needs. As you see here, we don't have any box regarding visualization. Another aspect that the URBACT offers is that there is a specific budget within the networks that are approved to get the support from experts. These experts are working within the network for the whole period of the network. And moreover, the cities can also recruit experts, ad hoc experts, for specific topics such as participatory methods and the draw of the action plan, etc. So the NURBAC network that is approved, usually it has a lead partner, a city that is a lead partner, that coordinates a group of 5 to 8 partner cities that usually they need to be spread throughout the European territory. So it's not just partners from one country. Actually, there is a rule that it cannot be, one network cannot have more than 2 partners of the same country. This group of partners have the support of lead experts during the whole period of the network, or ad hoc experts that are recruited for specific topics. Most of the time, these lead experts and ad hoc experts are coming from academia. Each partner city within the network organizes a URBAC local group, which is pretty much composed of citizens or stakeholders that are related with the topic. And this, one of the first topics that are discussed within this URBAC local group are actually 2 topics. One is which are the problems that we are talking about, and the other one, which are the stakeholders that are missing here. Because one of the aspects of this problem is that they want to have the representation of all stakeholders and citizens that are important for the project. For instance, usually there is one group that it's not considered when we are doing a plan for a street, which is the homeless. Usually they are not invited to participate on renovation of a street. And this, the URBAC network wants to overcome this and really give us the support to and encouragement to bring to the ULG all the persons that can be involved on the topic of the analysis. Moreover, the URBAC program offers tailor-made programs for enhancing capacity in policy making, but also on cross-cutting themes like digital transformation, gender equality, or gender transitions. So they offer pretty much guidance on specific outputs and activities that can help us to implement or to develop the action plan. Moreover, this program flips between 2 types of meetings. We always have transnational meetings where all the members of the network participate together to learn what to do next, and also to evaluate what they have been done so far. And then we go to our back local groups to implement activities that were suggested to us on the transnational meetings. This allows us to know what other cities are working on, how, and what is missing for us to, in the end, achieve the action plan. Urbat also have gives big relevance to the communication and visibility activities. They have several platforms that they use to provide this visibility, and they encourage cities to communicate in different ways throughout the program. The Urbat, they have 3 types of networks. The action planning networks. The municipality of Pombal is in 2 action planning networks that aims to co-produce an integrated action plan regarding one specific topic. I could say regarding Pombal, we are on an action planning network regarding social isolation. So we want to identify actions on how we want to break isolation. And the other one is how to support the citizens' green transition through a place-based approach. So these are the 2 topics. But there are other 2 types of networks funded by Urbat. The transfer network, which is good practices that are evaluated and then can be shared and adapted to other municipalities. This is the competition that is now open. And there is also the innovation transfer networks that adapt the experience of urban innovative action projects. So this is the same plan that Martin was showing before. So within each network, each partner needs to produce an action plan. And to do it, it is important to monitor, it is important to analyze the problem, plan, ensure the means, and identify the actions to solve the problem. Within the 2.5 years of the network, the first phase, or before even the approval, there is the selection of the topic. So for instance, I was saying that Pombal, we have 2, one regarding breaking isolation and the other climate action. So these are the topics around that the network, each network will work about. The activation phase is when each city, when the lead partner and the expert partner, they produce a baseline study. So it is what is happening at the moment in each city regarding the topic of study. Then we have the planning actions phase, where we need to work with the ULG to identify what we should implement in order to solve the problem that we focus on the network. In the end of this phase, we have the review. And this review, there are 2 types of review. The first one is the peer review. So means that within each network, we have the review between cities. For instance, in one of the networks, we were exchanging with a city in Romania. After this peer review between cities within the same network, we also have the cross review, which is between networks that they have a similar topic. For instance, I was told that Pombal, we have a network regarding climate action, and we are going to do a cross review with a network regarding circular economy. During this period that we are doing the peer and cross review, we are also testing actions. So making little experiments that allow us to understand if we are on the right way on the actions that we want to have on our action plan. And then in the end, we will have the action plan itself to implement. As I said, currently we are on the competition for the transfer networks. We had last year the application to the stamp of urban good practice. This good practice, they can be regarding climate action, local economy, participative governance, social cohesion, and urban planning. And they can be divided by topics in which between them there is one that is health. By looking to the good practices that are on the platform, the URBACT website, we see that there are three good practices that are regarding the urban planning and health. But the three of them, they are from 2017. Actually, in the last application, that was in 2024, there were no practices, no good practices regarding urban planning and health. Looking to the one from 2017, we have this example from Austria, the Urban Development Master Plan, which is an holistic strategy that was built. First, they define a common mission statement with common values and goals. Then they developed the master plan with topics for 9 fields of urban life. Urban planning, economics, education, mobility, participation, energy, and so on. And then they agree on the future collaboration to build the groundwork for long-term collaborative structures. Although in 2024 there's no good practice regarding urban planning and health, there are good practices that are actually tailored for this. We bring here the example of the urban renewal programs for neighborhoods, that it's a good practice from the Municipality of Ghent in Belgium, and they are now looking for partners to transfer this good practice. This program aims to achieve a sustainable urban development by moving away from short-term projects and to initiatives with a long-term vision. So it involves balancing between social, economic, spatial, and environmental aspects and tailoring to approach to each neighbor's unique characteristics. So the key to success is the integrated strategy that focuses on communication, people-centered planning, and community participation. So this program has a human-centered vision for each neighborhood, and the priorities can be different between each neighborhood. Just to tell you that this good practice was classified under the social cohesion theme, not urban planning and not the health. This was just to give you some examples from the information that I was talking about. I think that I show you that the communication is a relevant aspect on URBACT program, but visualization tools, especially regarding inequalities, are not mandatory. So for the next phase of URBACT, I think it is important that we can include inequality analysis and visualization of inequalities on the baseline study. To achieve this, for instance, it will be important to have within the URBACT toolbox one section just regarding visualization. I think this will be a very good box for the URBACT toolbox. Another aspect that is important is that networks are usually not linked with health equity, but they have a huge impact on it. So I think for the next URBACT 5 program, health equity could be a cross-cutting topic, so that every network evaluates their impact on it. So at the moment, the cross-cutting themes is gender equality, green transition, and digitalization. And so maybe for the next program, we will have health equity on it. Finally, the third advice that I would like to bring is that the share of experiences between cities, the peer review and the cross review are important steps on building building a plan. So I think it will be important for other policies, not just URBACT, to include these steps of peer review between departments and cross review between municipalities on the development of policies and programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, for giving us these insights and your experiences on the URBACT program. And we can now start with the discussion. And if you have any intervention to make, please raise your hand. And I hope I see it here on the list. Christian Lamka, is it an applause or is it a question? I can't.
was an applause.
Okay, thank you very much. But if you have a question, you can also ask them these. But I would like to start coming back to my question I wanted to raise earlier for Heike. So, what is your experience from the German planning practice? To what extent health equity is implemented already?
To make it brief, not enough, because we know a lot, but we see really something like an implementation gap in implementing health equity through urban planning or also through other policy fields. And we try to put this more and more on the agenda to learn why things are not implemented. And I think on the one hand, we will contribute from this working group with visualization, because some knowledge is not so transferred in a way that urban planners can work with it. On the other hand, we have the opportunity to run a big research project to build up an innovation community on urban health, IQ, which focuses on the implementation gap. And last week on Wednesday started the International Urban Health Summit in Hanover with an international perspective. And there we also had one breakout session only dealing with the implementation gap. So that it is so obvious that there is not enough implementation, and we try, after most people accept that planning has an influence on urban health, so there is some basic acceptance, we have to go one step further.
Let me ask about the implementation gap. So what do you think, how do you estimate the political awareness of issues of health equity? Is there a political awareness? Did it change over time, maybe during the COVID-19 pandemic, or what is the state? How would you describe it?
I start, and maybe Claudia and Martin add on that, because this is just a feeling or a perception of what I myself have and what has not an empirical base. I feel that we lose some kind of agreement on reaching out for health equity. We see change in political systems, which are less open for diversity and diverse communities and different needs on health equity. So times are getting tougher. But in the field of urban planning, I see, at least if it is made aware, if we have this awareness topic done, a good understanding of co-benefits of urban planning and health equity. It was an increase through COVID, because we always see this was a focus, and we saw much more how spatial factors had a contribution to health inequity within such an extreme situation like a pandemic. But I'm a bit worrying about changes in politics and a common ground where we were just thinking health equity is at least a consensus. So I'm feeling a bit worried about that, but we keep on working on it.
Thank you very much. Claudia, how is the situation in Portugal? To what extent is health equity really an issue in planning practice, and what is the political awareness?
Unfortunately, it's not somehow awareness, although we have gave some good steps. Recently, we had a political transformation, because we changed some responsibilities regarding the health. They went from the central government to the local government. And now the municipalities, they need to produce municipal health plans. And this allow many municipalities to understand that their impact of their choices and decisions and their political commitments on the health of the population. Of course, this is just a tool. It's just the beginning of the process. Much more is still needed in order that we go to the goal of looking to urban planning on a health equity perspective, but it is part of the process. For the future, I'm always positive, and I like to think about that this is going to happen in a few years. But I am not sure if we will have that because there's not much regulation on how this can happen at within the territorial programs. So I'm not quite sure how is going to be the future.
Okay, so we still have lots of potentials for making implementations for health equity as far as I can hear it from your perspectives. Are there any questions from the audience? So, Martin, what is your impression about the situation, how to improve the awareness? Do you think your visualizations may contribute? Did you get any responses so far from politicians or practitioners when you're talking about the topic? And I see Lisa is raising her hand, so I will take that question afterwards. But Martin, what do you see?
Well, to be very short, I think visualization is one way of like making clear what we're talking about. So especially in a political climate where buzzwords like diversity, inclusion are questioned, we need to be clear what we're talking about. What are the benefits? Who is involved? What are the processes that we're talking about? So I think the time is right because I share this kind of let's say like awareness of tougher times, so to speak, for the topic with Heike. I think it's the right time to be very clear what are positive effects of urban planning for health equity, and be clear what do we define as health equity, what do we define as planning for health and for well-being and for quality of life, which are words, which we can find a lot of consensus behind, but are something different from what we're talking here, which has more of this social aspect. One word, Lisa, because I'm interested what your question is I think we have a lot of interest by students in our universities that are interested in the environmental studies and architecture and planning, that are interested in working on health, that are interested in working with interdisciplinary teams. So if we get this right, have the right ways of teaching them, then I think we can get a long way. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Lisa Wegler, your question, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentations. I have one question. Do you know some studies in European cities where life acceptance is examined from an intersectional perspective? I'm asking this because I know it from Latin America, where they made a research project in large capital cities, and in Santiago de Chile, for example, they found that life expectancy for low-income women is reduced by 17 years compared to high-income women. So I was wondering if there are some similar studies.
Question to the speakers. I'm looking in the direction of Heike. And Martin, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, the example that I've shown from London is also correlating this to child poverty. So I think you cannot look at the topic from just one section. That example of the London lives on the lines tells you less about the spatial dimension, but more about like the connection to social demographic parameters. So I would assume that there must be some studies. I can only tell you about like those projects that try to visualize those effects. Like maybe you can add on studies.
No, it's fine. I think we're running out of.
We have to keep the time in mind. So thank you very much for your presentations. Thanks for attending. There is a lot of work to do. There will be discussions about how to implement it. We will have to do about the implementation gap. Regarding the methods of visualization, you have the chance, if you're interested, to contribute to the special issue in cities and health. If you are interested in our glossary, it will get online soon, and we in our working group, together with Heike and Lisa and other colleagues, we are working on pandemic preparedness, because the last pandemic also showed that there are health inequalities really do matter regarding how to cope with a time of a pandemic. And so, a lot of work to do. I'd like to say thank you again to the speakers. Vielen herzlichen Dank, muito obrigado to the audience, and auf Wiedersehen, adeus, and goodbye.